Hello, my name is Joe Langlois. I'm president of the Fort Taber, Fort Rodman Historical Association. Our association is bringing you this living history in anniversary of the D-Day event. On June 6, 1944, the largest shore invasion in the history of the world took place. But there were also men that were parachuted behind the lines of the Germans, as well as men that landed in gliders. Their goal was to dislodge the Germans who were well entrenched in bunkers very similar to what is found here at Fort Taber Park. You will witness a simulated battle between Allied troops and German troops in their effort to, on one hand, hold the land, and on the other to send the Germans back to their country.
At the beginning of World War II, Germany invaded Poland, causing France, Great Britain, and Canada to declare war on Germany. By the spring of 1940, the German army was ready to invade France, defended by not only the French military, but also a sizable British force as well. Within 6 weeks, the Germans defeated the Allies and seized control of France. By 1944, the Germans knew that the Allies, now including the United States, among others, would attempt an invasion of France to liberate Europe from Germany.
portray a motorcycle rider in the German army. And they would deliver messages, chauffeur officers and NCOs around. That's basically what my impression is. It's a copy of an R71. They made these bikes from 1938 to 1940. The 750 cc engine, about 24 horsepower. They're not fast, but they're very dependable bikes. They're built like a tank. They weigh about 850 pounds with a sidecar. They're a heavy bike. Meant to last. No. They weren't bulletproof or anything, but they just meant to last. They didn't use this particular model as much as they did the R12s and the R75s. The German culture was a very motorcycle-oriented culture. There's a lack of horses. There's a lot of motorcycle clubs and that before the war. A lot of soldiers were, when their draft notice came up, they also drafted the motorcycles with them. You see, early in the war, in the 38, 39, you see some bikes that have non-military paint jobs because they were pressed into service so quickly they weren't able to paint them. I do this to help educate people about the Second World War, keep the memory alive. I do other programs here at Fort Tabor for living history programs from French Indian War, King Philip's War, Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I. But the Germans were famous, were very frugal, so if they adopted French bikes, Russian bikes, anything they got their hands on, they would use it. They wouldn't disregard anything. So they didn't have the manufacturing capabilities as we did. So no, they were good at what they made, but they just didn't have the raw materials and the resources like the United States. They couldn't compete with the United States' industrial power.
The Allied forces based in Britain decided to begin the invasion by landing a huge army at a place called Normandy Beach, which is located on the northwest coast of France. Codenamed Operation Overlord and commanded by the American General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Allies landed on June 6, 1944, at 5 beaches in the Normandy area, with the code names of Utah Beach, Omaha Beach, Gold Beach, Juno Beach, and Sword Beach. Prior to the actual amphibious invasion, Allied planes pounded the Nazi defenders and dropped thousands of paratroopers behind German lines the night before the seaborne landings. Local French resistance forces, alerted to the imminent invasion, engaged in behind-the-lines sabotage and combat against the occupying Germans.
Well, basically what I do is when the boys are in the battles, they come in with various problems, such as the one I'm dealing with right now, and they'll bring them to me, both Allied and Axis troops, and they will have me either fix, repair, or clean, or do whatever is necessary to get it running back in function for the next battles. So back then, I would actually fight as well if a camp that I was at functioning as the Waffenmeister, if they were to get overrun, I would then fight. I would grab my weapon and start fighting right alongside the paratroopers and the army troops.
Right now, one of the soldiers came in and told me he had some issues with this weapon, and what I can tell is that bolt is really dirty and it needs a little lapping. So we are lapping the bolt so it runs smoother and it doesn't jam up in his MP28.
So back then, I would actually fight as well if a camp that I was at functioning as the Waffenmeister, if they were to get overrun, I would then fight. I would grab my weapon and start fighting right alongside the paratroopers and the army troops.
we enter your kingdom in glory. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
The full moon and the level of the tide would dictate the invasion's start. For a few days each month, those conditions were possible. A full moon would provide sufficient light. The tide had to be low enough to allow those manning the landing crafts to see German-placed obstacles on the French shore, but high enough for troops to avoid too much unprotected beach. The best day in June 1944 was the 5th, a Monday. Surprise was crucial since Germany had 55 divisions in France. The Allies could transport no more than 8 divisions on D-Day morning.
So yeah, this is what you would jump into. You got your knee pads, MP40 tucked under here, and your RZ-16 parachute, and your leather gloves. Now ready to board the aircraft and jump. We'd get on the Ju-52, we'd sit, would fly. It'd say Fertig machen zu Absprung. You'd clip this on, just like the American paratroopers you've seen on movies, and you jump out the door. So you board the plane with this in your mouth, and that's it. That's how you jump into battle. And you hope that your drop can lands, because American paras dropped in with all their ammunition on them, and we didn't jump with any ammunition on us. So, as you see, I don't have a clip. So they would drop your ammunition later in a drop can, and you'd hope that you could get it. And if you couldn't, that's why they got massacred at Crete. Crete, it's one of the islands off of Greece. They thought it was lightly defended. It wasn't. It was an island that was full of Australian and British troops. They thought it was going to be lightly defended. They intended to use it for an airfield to fly into Africa and fly into Greece. And they dropped without weapons. They dropped with their weapons in cans. So when they landed, they had to find their cans, and that's how they got massacred, because they couldn't find them, or their cans dropped into enemy positions. So they were massacred, but they did eventually win when they dropped in reinforcements, and reinforcements came by boat. So even though it was called the victory in Crete, they wouldn't really call it a victory. And then after that, Hitler suspended airborne operations, and there were no major drops after that. First drop was on April 9th, 1940. In Norway. It was the first combat use ever in military history of airborne troops. It was German troops into Norway. Then after that was the airborne assault in Eben-Emael in Belgium. It was the first time they used gliders. They took this impregnable fort, kind of looks like the fort we're in today, and they took it completely by surprise because they didn't expect an airborne assault. They expected a frontal assault. So they took that, and with that success, they authorized Crete, and after Crete, no more jumps. There were scattered jumps after that, but they lost so many men and so many planes. Hitler he didn't want to use them anymore. So they were used as skilled infantrymen after that. It's mostly because they didn't have their weapons. When you see the Band of Brothers and the 101st, they had all their weapons on them. So when they landed, they were ready to go. They're a self-contained unit, whereas the Germans' equipment, you didn't jump with weapons. Eventually, guys started to jump with a weapon like this, tucked in, but still you don't have all of your ammunition with you. So that's why they stopped that. There was two more jumps after that. There was a jump into Rome. That was small. Jump into Sicily. Oh, and there was one more. There was a jump in during the Ardennes, but it was a failure. So, but Fallschirmjägers were made famous in Italy, and it wasn't for jumping. It was for defending the Abbey at Monte Cassino. The MP40 was originally designed to be carried by officers, NCOs, squad leaders, but the only difference is the Fallschirmjägers, they gave every one of them, early in the war, they gave every one of them an MP40 so that they would have maximum firepower when they landed. So most FJs would have a machine gun, as opposed to a rifle. But towards the end of the war, when they were fighting as infantry and not jumping anymore, they received a rifle like everybody else.
It is estimated that nearly 2 million soldiers, sailors, and airmen were involved in Operation Overlord, including the United States, Great Britain, and Canada, who were scheduled to fight after men on the ground secured a Normandy bridgehead. 195,000 naval personnel manned 6,939 naval vessels, including 1,200 warships and 15 hospital ships. The United States shipped 7 million tons of supplies. That translates into 14 billion pounds of material. Of those supplies, ammunition amounted for 448,000 tons. Air support operations, often overlooked in the success of D-Day, sustained significant losses. Between the 1st of April and the 5th of June 1944, the Allies flew 14,000 missions, including 12,000 airmen and 2,000 aircraft. 127 more planes were lost on D-Day. By the end of the Normandy campaign, 28,000 airmen were dead. 21,500 German dead were buried at La Cambre. Decades after D-Day, even though humanity seems farther than ever from finding some way to gain an eternal peace for this world, everyone can agree on at least one point. Those who fought and died to free Europe on that day altered the course of history.
Thank you for watching today's events. We are hopeful that you found this not only entertaining but significant. Our goal is to maintain the history of this country, to respect its history, not to glorify war in any way, but to recognize the struggles that American men and American women and families go through to protect the freedoms of our country and of the world. The Fort Taber Historical Association is planning a series of other one-day living histories. At the end of June, I think it's going to be the Saturday of June 22nd, we're doing a one-day living history depicting the King Philip Wars. In July, from the 13th, 14th, and 15th, we're scheduled a Roman event. At the end of July, on the 24th, I believe, the weekend of the 24th, we're doing a Revolutionary event, and that'll bring a close to the living histories for this year. However, next year, at the time of the D-Day event, this conflict that you have observed today will be brought back. And this one has proven to be a significant one in that it is much larger than we've ever done before, and it may indeed grow to be a more significant event than even what you saw today. Thank you very much.